All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, and welcome to the Nigeria M365 community, where we'll discuss everything you want to know about Office 365, enterprise mobility plus security, and Windows 365. So we're happy to have you join us today in today's meetup. So for today's meetup, it's just going to be basically interactions around Microsoft Teams. So far, our speaker for today is actually had an emergency. He's a bit under the weather. So since it's an interactive sessions, we just have a kind of interactions. And Solomon, myself, and Joseph will just be interacting on Microsoft Teams. We'll talk about different case scenarios. We'll talk about different troubleshooting skills that we can adopt when troubleshooting issues generally around the Microsoft Teams. All right, Solomon, I'll stop sharing my screen now so you can share your screen and so that we can have our interactions. Hey, Solomon, are you there? Hi, Solomon, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. So you can share your screen so we can start
Oh,
having
oh,
interactions. Yes.
I actually told you I can't share my screen at the moment. I'm
Oh, we
running
can
some
share.
migration for
Oh,
work.
okay.
So I
All right.
yeah.
Let me share mine then. Let me share mine
Okay.
so we can just talk through it. I'm sharing my screen now. Awesome. So far we've been able to look at the Microsoft Teams itself, users. We talked about the last week. We talked about guest access and external access. So we're supposed to actually start today's with Teams devices. So someone you can take it up from there. If you're talking on mute or your mic is not connected. I can hear you.
Um, I'm sorry, I'm actually doing stuff from my system and it's actually lagging my
Oh,
system.
okay.
That's yeah,
Okay.
that's the problem. So what I think we can do, we can just talk around what he spoke about yesterday. See, the last conversation, that's around what Emmanuel did the last week. Yeah, we
Okay.
can just have conversation about that instead of just starting up something new afresh.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
because if I have to explain the devices and everything and looking at your screen, I don't think I'll really have like that full control. So we could probably just have like interactive section around what he has already explained very well before to people instead of
Oh,
me
okay.
starting something. Yeah.
All right. So awesome, awesome. So last week Emmanuel talked about guest access and we know that from guest access lets you control how guests collaborate with people in organization. And I think it tried to differentiate between the difference between guest access and external access. Can you throw more light to that, Solomon?
Oh, for okay, regarding
Guest access and external access, the difference between the two.
so
Hi,
for
Joseph, you're welcome. Chinkazi, you're welcome as well.
so basically, right, when we are talking about guest access and external collaboration, when me personally I want to try to talk about those two stuff, what I would always use to explain that is when you go to the when you go to identity, right, where you go to the Entra ID.
Okay. It's taking a time. Guess my internet's a bit slow. Okay. I think it's you're lagging from your hand again.
Okay, so basically, what I always use to explain this is, um, when you go to collaboration, you can see where we have external identities. I think that should be,
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, one way of explaining that for me is you. If I'm trying to explain that, I try to see how you understand what the AD B2B collaboration actually does, where you kind of have the whole setting, the side set up between your organization and another organization. Is more like um, you're inviting someone from another organization, and then you can also as well have them in your teams, in terms of you have like a teams and then you have channels. You can as well have those guest users come in and you can collaborate with them. While for the external, it's more like you being able to, communicate with people outside your organization. Like you have that, you can send messages, just like now I can use my tenants and then send you messages and all of that. But for the guest and access, I think understanding this is also like a very key factor in when using guests, and also going to teams and also understanding how you can fine tune the access. Yeah. So I think
Okay.
understanding that aspect would actually help you. And also understanding the new feature where we have the sharing for that's the shared channel
Sh-
also. Yeah,
Okay.
so understanding those basic stuffs, I think is something that is very important in terms of when we are talking of the
Guest
guest
access.
and yes, and external access.
Externals.
Yeah.
Joseph Afeso, do you want to throw more light too? Guest access and external access in things.
Like Solomon has actually said, when we say guest, that means we should have an element of presence of that user in our tenants. What I mean is either the user has been invited to a channel via shared channel, or the user has been invited to a team for collaboration, or multiple teams. In that case, if you check the Entra ID, if you check under users, you are going to find that user there as the user type is going to be guest. That means this user is already in your environment. So it's going to be listed there. And if you see where you see user type, you see member, you see the one that is having guest there. So usually the email address of this user is going to have an ext. If you expand that now, if you expand that column towards your right, just from up there, yeah, just drag it. Yeah, thank you. So you see that there is like an in between where you have the user's domain, and then you have this tenant's domain. Then the distinguishing factor there is the ext that shows that this guy was actually invited from outside into this tenant. So this is a guest user. And but for the external user, you don't have their presence even here. So long the policy that is set up in this organization allows, I think it's guest access, is if it's open for you to invite external user to team, then definitely you are going to have that user showing up for you here. So I think even if you go to external access, there's something I think we can see there.
Okay.
Yes, still on that Teams admin center, external access. Yeah, so here there are a lot of things we can do to say, okay, we want to invite this user. We want to say, okay, we want to allow this user's domain so that it's only the users in this organization that I would want my users to be able to invite to team. So one thing is very confusing here for people. Allowing all means everybody can, be invited to save for that collaboration that we just made mention of in Teams. But if it is allow specific domain and I'm bringing in this domain.com, it means that all other domains are blocked. So, and if I am blocking one domain, it means that only that domain is blocked, but others are all allowed. So sometimes people get confused and they block a particular domain, and then they think that that will by implication block any other one or allow a particular domain and be feeling that maybe the other way around. So from here we can look at it, and there are some things that guests can do that external users cannot do. For example, when you go to Teams, there's a particular table that usually explains a lot of things about the difference between guest and external user. Let me see if I can lay my hands on that. What guests can do. I think that is what I can use to in Teams. Let me see, because there's a table that I usually have, like the idea of sharing file. External users cannot actually share file, but
I think the table is up. This is what we're referring to.
okay, let me see. Yeah, thank you very much. This table is very important. So it is from here I usually have to look very well to see what guests can do and what external users can do. So if you compare external users and guest users from here, chat with someone in another organization, external users and guest users can do that. There's a particular place that I want to see sharing file. Search for people. Yeah, share file. This 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth row in this first table will show you that external user will not have the option to share file. So if you are chatting with an external user, the attachment icon is automatically not going to be there. So
Because they
if
are
you
external, right?
yeah, so if you see the chat window, you will not see that ring kind of what do I even call that? That you have option to now do attachment, right? You won't find it there if you are chatting with an external user. So I've had situations where customers come on and keep asking that they want to share a file and they cannot see the file icon, and they are chatting with somebody, but they cannot see that, only to go check and discover that this person they are chatting with is an external user. So the only option this person has at that point is either to invite that user to the team as a guest so that you
Yes.
can have the option to share. And again, it depends on the policy that is set from the sharing policy on SharePoint that will determine if he will be able to even attach file, because again, they can even block users from block certain domains from receiving files that are being shared from Microsoft Teams. So when we dive deeper, sometimes it may just even be that they are limiting um, tenants that will be able to have sharing that will be able to share their files, or they'll be able to share their files with. If you look at this place you are opening right now, if you look at that more external sharing setting that is having a drop down below, yeah, that place, you'll find out that just still hold on, there's a limit here. Thank you. Add domain, that place where you see add domain is more like that external access as well. I think at this point you can add the domain and say you want to allow this domain. Immediately you have a domain here, it means that all other domains are blocked. So that is what it means. So since this contoso.com is allowed, it means that if I'm having you in my team, if you're having me in your team and I'm bringing my domain.com to your account, even though the attachment option is going to come up, there is going to be an issue when you attach a file to the chat between you and I. The reason is because you have allowed only contoso.com, meaning that you have blocked all domains from having the option to, having the permission to share files with from Microsoft Teams. So when users are having these issues, I usually tell them, let's check. Of course, they will call me and see that yeah, it's allowed. But when you go down to this place, you discover that there is one particular domain that is allowed, which automatically block all other domains. So the resolution here is, okay, you now trust this guy, he's coming from xyz.com domain. Is either you are going to remove contoso.com from this allowed domain, or you are going to add xyz.com domain to this place so that this guy will be able to access your file. When you can even share the file at all with this guy on Microsoft Teams. But if it is external user, then you don't even have the option to even attach the file in the first place. So this is a very major difference between external user and guest user. So I think this will just be the summary. I would just like to throw a light on this for now.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So there's always a misconception that before a user can be invited as a guest, it is either the user is, you're inviting the personal account, talking about maybe at gmail.com, at outlook.com, at hotmail.com. Is that actually correct?
Of course, it's not correct, because if you look at this place, for example, I think we can go back to external collaboration setting in Teams Admin Center. The next tab, right? The one
Yeah.
before that one. Yeah, that one there. Yeah. So from this place, you see that we have a lot of domain that we want. Can you just scroll up? Let's see what is even written on this page itself. So this external access. So this external access let people in your organization find, call, chat, and set up meeting with external users. Organization setting dictate how people in your organization can communicate with Teams user in other organizations. So it now means that it's no longer a personal account, right? In other organizations, on unmanaged Teams users and other group of external users. So it actually incorporates both organizations and even, I think, even personal accounts in this case. Now, in order for external access to work outside organization, must also allow your domain in the years. Of course, this is another very main problem where it's difficult because, let's say, for example, this tenant A raises a ticket with a support engineer and said they cannot see these people. Now, if you are searching for somebody whose domain is blocked here from Teams, it will say you cannot set somebody in this domain because your organization are not set up to talk to each other. Okay. Now you come and trace this domain and you discover that their domain is not blocked, and the user who raised the ticket wants to emphasize on the fact that the domain is whitelisted, is not blocked here. So if you are still having that issue of unable to communicate with that domain, that federation is not there, then it means that the person would have to go and check over there to see that this domain is not also being blocked from the other side, because it's always a two-way. I can
Exactly.
allow you and you block me, so it's not a transitive relationship. You must have to
Exactly.
also allow me from there before I can talk to you. So that's why they're saying that, I think there's a place I read here that said, other organization, in order for external access to work, outside organizations must also allow your
Oh, your
domain
domain.
in their
Yeah,
external
external
access
access
settings.
settings.
So if they do not, and the unfortunate thing most time is that you cannot see that one, because this is the only one that you have poor view of, until you tell this guy to let those guys know to also go and check this and be sure that they also allow this domain. So this area around where we have complications when it comes to having external collaboration. And the guest access now depends on the external collaboration setting that is set there from Microsoft Teams. From my experience, if this domain is blocked and you are trying to now invite somebody as guest, you'll be having issues with that. So you must first off, and then the guest access must be open. It cannot be off and you allow the domain, and then if it is off here and then the domain is allowed, the only thing you can do at that point is to have an external collaboration with that domain, like chatting without having the option of file attachment and all of that. But anything that is making you to now invite this person to be in your directory, it means that you also have to turn this what's it called, guest access on for that guy to be able to. Because if you go to Teams, let me even show you something. If you go to Teams and you want to add external, not even the admin center, like the client and you are trying to type that guy's email address to be added to a team, if guest access is blocked, then it will just say no result found. You cannot see the guy until you go there to enable guest access before you can add him to the team. And another important thing I've seen is that some people do not even know that when you go into teams where you are invited as a guest to another organization, you have to switch the directory to that organization before you can access the teams that you were invited to. They just want to see the guest environments appearing in their primary tenant, but it doesn't work that way. So it's until you go to switch to that tenant where you are invited as a guest, then it opens another interface for you. So what I was trying to say was if you go to this, maybe this first, stereozo now, and you go to that three dot by the front, let's say that is where you want to invite somebody to, so you add a member. So this is where you type in now, and I see that, yeah, this is where you now type in the email address of that user, and then the user gets it on his own Outlook to be able to, you know, uh, become a member here. So if external access is blocked, okay, if external access is blocked, at this point, you will not be able, I mean, if guest access is blocked, then at this point, you will not be able to search for that guy. And if you're able to search for him and you get him successfully and he accepts to join by confirming your invitation, then if he wants to access this particular team that you invite him to, you first of all need to go to the profile picture where you have EI up there by the top right hand corner, and then switch to where that time is going to have the option to
Directory.
switch to, yeah, to change to that organization where he is invited as a guest. And once he switches to that place, then he leaves everything in his primary tenant and now become, that now opens for him to have the feature of a guest in that organization. So that way they can now share file. But if you are chatting from this primary tenant to the other tenant where one is not one is not a guest, then the table now comes to play where you say sharing file, yes for guest and no for external users. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. All right. Thank you guys for joining, Kingsley, Franca, and John. So today is just an interactive session. So we are asking questions around Teams. So if you have any questions to ask for Microsoft Teams, so we are actually having a discussion. So just feel free to raise up your hands, then I'll call you to ask your questions. Maybe you've done some practice, you've done some repro based on the stuff we've been discussing, and there's something that is not clear to you. Just raise up your hands, then you can ask your question. So if you have questions, feel free. Kingsley, anything at all. Johnny, John, Franca, if you have any questions, Joseph, feel free to ask a question. Chimkazi, if you have a question, just feel free. You have any question? Any question, guys? All right, I have. All right, Chimkazi, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to make sure of something. I know that your what you guys do is on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So if I like start from the beginning from because I'm little bit I'm just coming, so it's a little
Okay.
bit like a lot for me. So if I is it possible if I go to YouTube and start for let's say from the first one and how you guys like explain things, I'll be able to understand this.
Yes, you will. You will. So we on the YouTube channel, we have the introduction to team part one interactive session,
Okay.
part two interactive
Okay.
session. So it's updated to the last class we had on Saturday. So you can
Okay.
check them. You'll be able to come up to speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have to get the Microsoft Teams itself so that it will is it like is it that I have to buy it or like this usually I'll download it.
Okay, so before you be able to have access to Teams as a service, right? You must
Yeah.
have like a subscription. So there's a free tier in which is for personal accounts. It has
Okay.
limitation. Why for the business? Like what we're discussing is actually Teams for business that that business actually uses, be it small
Okay.
business and enterprise. So you can actually start a free trial, or
Okay.
you set up a developer tenant. So I will share a link with you in the chat. On There's a video for you to set up a free account that you can use for 3 months. Okay, you're not going to
Okay.
pay for it. I'll share the
Okay.
link with you in the chat. Yeah,
Okay. Is it in this chart? This chart here.
in this chat. Yeah, in this
Okay.
chat. Yeah,
I really appreciate. Thank you.
you're welcome. Guys, if you have questions, please feel free to ask questions. All right, Solomon Joseph. So I have a questions about taking us back to the part one of our class. A user complaining that, oh, I'm trying to, after signing in into Microsoft Teams, is giving me an error that unable to start Teams. How do I troubleshoot that? Joseph Solomon, anyone can answer that? How do I troubleshoot it? I'm having issue. I'm trying to sign into Teams applications. I'm unable to sign in.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just caught up into in between two stuffs. So
I
unable to
understand.
sign in.
Yes.
I know one of it has to do with cookies, which that's from my personal experience with people. I know sometimes it's probably you going to allow cookies on your browser, and another scenario is license. It can come from license. Most times you probably assign the license to a user, but then you're not selecting Teams app. So that can also be one of the issues. Sometimes in terms of even the license, maybe you're just selecting multiple conflicting license. So it can also probably affect that. But I wouldn't say there's like a straightforward way to solving this issue. Uh, you just probably need to, get the user account and then go through each of this process. You're checking the license, checking the particular, if probably the Teams apps is available, checking the cookies and all of that. And somehow you should probably just trace the root cause of that particular issue.
Awesome. Awesome. What if it's the case of maybe the Teams client application is, keeps on crashing. I'm not able to use the Teams client application now. It's not on the web.
So if Teams client is crashing, you can actually get log. You can download the log and look at what is actually happening. But outside downloading the log, if you go to Microsoft documentation, there's a, what do they call it? There is a path you can follow and just go and clear your Teams cache.
Yeah.
So most times
Actually,
clearing Teams cache can actually help you in terms of a lot, because, and also another thing is updating it. So most times when people have issues with Teams, and if most of the issues, sometimes their status is having issues with updating. If your status is having issues with updating in Teams now, it can actually cause a lot of problem, especially if we are talking of call queues and auto attendance. So in call queues and auto attendance, if you probably talk towards that level, we have one of the settings that has to do with presence based. So what presence based does is, if a call is coming into a queue that you're in and presence based is probably turned on, what is going to happen is going to look at your availability before, adding you to that call. So if you're probably experiencing that issue where your status is probably changing to away and just changing to busy and all of that, you would probably miss a call because it will be showing that you're either not available for the call and is looking for someone else in the queue. So most times when people have those issues, Teams crashing and all of that, so I think updating Teams can solve that, or just going to your cache and just clear it. There's the link you dropped for the Teams clearing Teams cache should have that for that of Mac and Windows. So for that
Yeah.
of Windows, it's very easy. You just press your Windows and arrow, paste the path there, and delete every folder there. So once you delete all the folders there, you should be like good to go with Teams, or try to just get like the recent updates. So I know recent update of Teams is like very, very important. I don't skip it, because once there's a new update, there is a lot of bug that must have been fixed and a lot of stuff must have changed. So I just try to update mine so that I don't run into all of these issues. And me personally, intervals, I still just go and just clear my Teams cache so that I don't also have to experience any of those issues.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Joseph Afeso, this is for you. So you walk us through a video where you discuss when a Teams type had missing in Teams. Can you walk us through that in this session so that people that couldn't watch the video can have an idea as well?
Okay, I will look at that. But unfortunately, I don't have a tenant that is still enterprise voice enabled. However,
Okay.
I will just try to maybe I see that Jerry is busy and couldn't share his screen. So I may just show you around what he described earlier and see how that can be useful to us. So permit me to share my screen briefly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sharing. I'm stop sharing now. You can
Okay.
go ahead. You can go ahead to share your screen.
Okay, so please let me know when you can see.
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay. So first off, he made mention of updating Teams. So usually Teams was supposed to, if you have Teams saved in the right location, it could actually do the update directly by itself. But sometimes, because of different locations that will have the file saved in our PC, you may need to check to update it manually. So if you want to do that, you would um, you would have to, what's that? Just hold on. You would have to come here. You would have to come here, and then
Check for
you go
updates.
to about, and then what you do is about, and then you check for updates. It will tell you something here. We will check and install any update while you
You
continue
can.
to work. All right, while you continue to work. So if you look at this, it will automatically update by itself at this point. You don't need to trouble yourself. And then the second point is if you cannot, if you want to clear your Teams cache, right, that was shared with us, so you can do Windows R. And then what you do is to paste this here, what you have here now, Microsoft Teams, and then you can just click on OK, and then this opens for you. Usually people are afraid to delete all of this, but what you can do is just Control A and then delete everything here and restart your Teams, and hopefully it's going to work. Okay, so another thing is you see this point that you are sometimes you see try these two things out and it's still not working. What you can do at that point is for you to call up is for you to call up Teams from here, and then you right click on it and you open in file location, open in file location, and then you right click here, and then you go to properties. If you check this place where you have compatibility, before you do this, you would have quitted your Teams entirely. Then this box is not checked by default, so you check it, and then you apply this, you okay it, and then restart your PC and try to see. Most time it will be able to resolve the issue that we're talking about. So you also mentioned having it as having it checked for you having Teams checked for a user multiple times. So let me look at, for example, this user here. I have what can I yeah, let's say I have this user here, and this user has license, and the license he has is business premium. Let us say, for example, by one thing or the other, he also has business basic. and then it is saved for him here. Now he has business standard, he has business basic. Good. But if you come down to this place and you scroll down to Microsoft Teams, and you scroll down to Microsoft Teams here, you find out that it has Microsoft Teams. So this is going to be conflicting licenses. One is coming from Business Basic, the other is coming from Business Premium. So unless this user will uncheck one of these and have only one license assigned to him, is going to be having issues signing into Teams. So this is what it meant when it said having conflicting licenses. It means that you have two licenses assigned to just one user to access Microsoft Teams. So if there is any need that you need to give a license that has Teams again to a user who already has a license. Let's say, for example, the user has a Teams exploratory license assigned to him and you still want to give a business license, make sure that you don't have conflicting licenses assigned to that user so that issues will not happen that has to do with conflicting licenses. And another very common thing is if you have a user who does not even have Teams checked, it's possible that the user will have business premium this way, but because of one thing or the other, these Teams down below here is unchecked for the user. So as I've saved this now, if this lady wants to try to sign into Teams, it's not going to work for him. It's going to be throwing errors, even though you find out that, okay, if you come to check, it has business premium. That should not stop you from pushing ahead to make sure that you also go to check if the user has Microsoft Teams checked for him here. It is very important so that if you have this Microsoft Teams checked for him, then you can save it and then it can work. So two scenarios that has to do with license is not having at all, and then having multiple license can cause that issue. Then for the Teams application, like you mentioned, clearing cache and then running on compatibility sometimes would help. And another very important thing is, yes, you can even sign in, but at one point or the other it crashes. So there's one thing I usually have to do. I know that if you come to settings here, this box here, this disable GPU, if you are having issues, sometimes um, this has this has an impact in the way your Teams performs. So some situation where you just have it intermittently crash, you can decide to disable GPU just to check if this is not what is affecting your Teams. But it's going to have running on compatibility from my experience does not have implication on you having your Teams running the features it's supposed to run. But disabling GPU just so your Teams will not be crashing, it now affects you. If this is now disabled, it now affects you when you want to give or take control while sharing your screen in Teams. So it has an implication. So if you want to say, okay, Teams should not crash, so you want to check that box to disable the GPU, you should be ready to compromise, give or take control while sharing screen because it's actually going to have impact on it. So that's what you can easily do when a user is having issues with Teams crashes on the desktop. Then for the web, actually for Mac users, if you have this is a very dicey situation. But when I see it
Exactly.
resolved a very this is what I want to tell you now, resolved a lot of issues for me. If I come to this user, I call him global admin. If I give him if I give him global admin and I go ahead and give this guy Exchange admin or SharePoint admin or any other admin role attached to the global admin on Mac OS, he is not going to be able to sign into Teams on the web. As in, there's no way I can explain it, but it happened. And so if I go to manage rule, for example, here for that particular user, and just maybe I'm overzealous, I go and give him any of these, maybe global reader or exchange admin help desk or to add to the global admin, knowing fully well that being a global admin gives him access to all of these admin centers, but I still go ahead and check one other admin rule for this user. The user will not be able to sign in on Teams on the web on macOS. So it's going to have impact on the user, definitely. So that is for issues with signing into Teams. Then this other issue of enterprise voice enabled, you see, if I bring up my Teams, for example, and I go to calls here, you would find out that I don't have option to call. So let me just say typepad in Teams. So let me just go to images so I can show you from there. So you can see that this place here, right, you can see that this is also Teams and this is call, and you can have option to dial phone number. This is because this particular user here can make what is called PSTN calls. So in Teams, generally, we can say there are generally two types of calls first. There is SIP call and there is the PSTN call. The SIP call is using your email address. Like I want to call you, I just come here, start typing, I start typing maybe somebody's email address or name. Then at the end of the day, I ring the person and the person picks the call, right? Just typing the email here. I don't know if I have a user that I can easily remember their email address. Okay, let's say I just bring one particular user here up. Okay, let me look at and then as it bringing this guy up, I just hit on it and I call this guy. It takes a call. This is what is called SIP call. It's just a call from using email address to call the user. But instances are that you may want to call the person's Glow line or MTN line, like calling out to mobile phone, and the person should take the call. That is called PSTN call. That is public switch telephone network. So for a user to be eligible to make this call, the user needs to first of all have phone system license and calling plan license. Now, for phone system license, if you are using any other Microsoft license other than E5, you are definitely going to buy phone system license as add-on to your tenant. I mean, to your tenant. But if you are using E5, you are going to have phone system coming with your E5 license. So, but if you don't have, you need to buy it as add-on. That is, if you are using anything from E3 downwards, you need to buy a phone system license. And then the next one is the calling plan. I will usually see phone system license as a phone that you are buying a telephone. And then I will see calling plan as what do I even call it? Maybe airtime or something, or maybe SIM card, right? Yeah, maybe SIM card. Now, with that calling plan that you have different types of calling plans. Now, what determines if you can call somebody from the US is you are using UK phone number or you purchase UK phone number is if you have international calling plan. So there is international calling plan, there is local calling plan. So if you are in the UK, for example, and you have a local calling plan, it means that yes, you can only call +44. That is UK phone numbers is what you can call. But if you have international calling plan, local and international calling plan, it means that you can call both the numbers in the UK and the number outside of UK. So that one is international and local. So there are local calling plan, there is international calling plan. I think there is local and international calling plan together. If you check the admin center, you're going to see those licenses.
Domestic plan and international plans.
Yeah. You have domestic and international calling plan. So all those ones. Now, for you to be enterprise voice enabled means that you need one that is very compulsory, your phone system license, and then your calling plan. If you have these two in place, then you can easily go and obtain phone number from the Teams admin center. So when you get that phone number, you first of all have to assign those licenses to the user. Then you can now go to voice and then you get the phone number that you want to get. And then when you are purchasing phone number, there are two types of phone number. You have the service number and you have the user subscriber number. So the user subscriber number is what you want to give to a user. You can obtain it from there. But also you have the option. It is not compulsory that you must use calling plan, because of course you can use the option that is called direct routing to get your other services. But even before you want to use direct routing, what is compulsory is that you must have phone system license. So if you are getting phone number from Microsoft, this is where to get your phone numbers from. If you go to phone numbers, you can add phone number. And if you are adding phone number, you give it a description of the order you want to, the phone number you want to, purchase, and then you go to the region. Depend on the license I have and my location, I can now just, I will have option to, but this is not actually an ideal environment for me to do this. So if you do that, you have list of phone numbers that will be available for you. You can obtain them. Then you can either assign them to the user using PowerShell, or you can give the numbers to users from here using the admin center. So you can see what we have here. All these numbers I have now are all service numbers. So they are conference numbers. They are not user subscriber number. So that is how you can make a user enterprise voice enabled. So if I want to summarize, for you to be able to have a user having this option to call in Teams, you have to make sure the user has phone system license first of all. Then the calling option that you have option for direct routing, you have option to use Microsoft calling plan. If you are using Microsoft calling plan, it means that you need to now determine if the user is going to be making local and international local call only. Then you now give the user the license, domestic calling plan, domestic and international calling plan. And when you give this license to the user, you go to voice, you obtain the phone number from Microsoft. No, kindly note that the phone numbers are free actually. You don't pay for phone numbers. You can now get phone numbers and assign them to the user. Then the user automatically become enterprise voice enabled. So there are situations where after you get this phone number and you assign it to the user, the dial pad is not showing. So that way you can get the user attribute using a very popular command we call get CS online, CS online user. And when that comes up, you will find out that you will check for the enterprise voice. If the enterprise voice is enabled and the phone is not enabled and the phone number is assigned to the user, of course, you just run a command to make the user enterprise voice enabled, and then you can get what you are looking for after doing that. So to get all the attributes of a user, every attribute of a user, you just do get CS online user, and then you bring in the email address of the user here in your command. Let me just see notepad. So let's say you are looking for attribute of Joseph at this domain.com. So what you just do here, you just do Joseph at domain.com after connecting to Teams via PowerShell. If you run this, everything about Joseph is going to show up. So you can now see if the phone number you're assigning to him is really assigned. And then you can now check if you can also check if enterprise voice is enabled. If it is not enabled for the user, you just enable it, and yeah, he's going to be able to have option to call using PSTN in Teams. So that's the summary of enterprise voice and what you can do with it.
Awesome, awesome, Joseph. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've learned a lot for this. So, guys, it's an interactive session. If you have question, Michael, feel free to ask. Welcome on board. If you have any questions in Teams, just ask. All right. It's an interactive session. You're just here to chat, just to discuss around Teams, right? Do you have questions? All right, I want to ask all right, Kim Classic, please go ahead. Go ahead and ask a question, please. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Not really a question. I just wanted to like remind you.
Okay, I've sent the link to you. Check the chat. I've sent the link. Sorry, I didn't tell you. I've sent the link to you. So you can use that video to set up a developer tenant. That's what we'll call it. It's for practicing. So you'll be able to practice, yeah. Hi, Solomon, are you there? Yeah, so there's a popular scenario. A user they delete a particular channel and they're trying to recreate the channel with the same name again. But they find out that they're unable to recreate the channel after deleting it. Hi, Solomon. Are you there? Hi, Solomon. Are you there? So for this scenario, basically what Microsoft, it's actually by design because of actually the system needs to maintain data for information protection scenarios. So when a particular channel is deleted, it's not possible to actually recreate the same channel again after the channel has been deleted. So the room is still
Hello.
open for question. Yeah, Solomon, go ahead, please.
So sorry, I like
I
I told
get it.
you,
I
many things
understand.
are running. So before I try to pull up Teams, I just get this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I for what Joseph said, that was great. And the question you were asking, I've never been in a situation where I actually needed to recreate a Teams channel that was deleted before, but and I've never had any situation where I needed to also troubleshoot that. But
Okay.
I don't know it if probably it would be related to permission or something. But yeah, so I've not really read anything about that in terms of trying to recreate exact channel. So, but something I can just always try out and see what or read about it.
Okay, so Emmanuel, I guess you are talking about deleted channel and then recreating one with the same name. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
Yeah.
actually, I see that I think I've seen that situation. I'm trying to replicate that issue now so that I can be sure of what I saw. Manage team. So if you delete a channel, right, and you want to create another one with that name, yeah, I can remember what happened that time. Let me share my screen again. So you can actually do that, but I think that should be after 30 days because the channel you delete, you cannot permanently delete a channel. It has to be in deleted channel, and the request that customers have raised recent that time, I will not say recently because I already not very recent, is you know, I go to channel and this is a deleted channel, right? If I show it this way, it's going to be test general channel, right? That I deleted. This is actually not a general channel, but it was a name I gave to it. So this channel only has the option to restore it. Okay, because it was just deleted just now on the 9th of September 2023. So
Okay.
if I want to make an attempt to create another channel with this same name, I will not be able to do that. The reason is because I already have this channel here having a name, and customer will want to tell you, hey, I want to get rid of it from this deleted channel list so that I can create another channel with the same name. It will not be able to do that until you're able to get rid of it from the deleted channel. And unfortunately, you cannot delete it from here. The only option you have is to restore. It will remain here for the next 30 days before you can have the option to create another channel that is bearing the same name. I don't know if that makes sense. So
It makes sense.
if I quickly add a channel right now, I just call it test and then I make it standard or whatever, I just add it. If I delete this channel right now, I delete it, it's going to be in the list of my deleted channel. If I come to, I hope it's here, right? I just go to manage team and then I go to deleted. Excuse me, was it here?
Think you go to channels.
Hold on, manage team. Right, just hold on, please. Channels, where are you? Manage team. I'm supposed, yeah, here, yeah. Thank you. So I'm supposed to see it on that deleted channel. Now, this is the problem. Let's say I want to come back to this notice and I want to create another channel called test,
Test.
right? I want to add a channel. I'm calling it test. I'm expecting it to throw a name, right? This is
Yeah.
the replication of the issue I'm trying to tell you. Now, it will say channel name
Channel
already
name.
exists, already taken, right? This already
Yeah.
taken. Now, the user want to tell you that I want it to be that today, create another channel for me bearing this same name. And you are trying to do this. For example, you've not come to even deleted channel. Maybe you're just outside of here when the user came in and said, I've been trying to create a channel and it has been throwing error that the name has been taken. But when I check the list of my channel, I go to manage team, I check my channel and it's not showing that I have that. And then maybe he's having an oversight on this particular place by just clicking on here. And then maybe you are here just trying to hit on why will it be so? You are trying to come back here and say add the channel and you say I want to use the name test. It will keep telling you that the name has been taken. And then you now say, okay, let's say you dive in deeper and you now try to expand this one. Customer say, hey, actually we have the name test here. Please get rid of this for me so that I can create another channel with this same name test. There are a lot of scenarios that can make him want to do this thing I'm telling you. And
Yeah.
then the only option he has is this. He wants to argue with that there's a PowerShell to get rid of this now, but it's not possible. Right? So the only option you have is just to restore the one
So
that
that
has that name. But it will remain here for the next 30 days before it will get deleted automatically. And after that number of days, of course, you can now come back here and it will be possible for you to create another channel with that same name. It will work.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So guys, please, if you have question, the floor is still open. The floor is still open. If you have any question, the floor is still open. So in the absence of no other question, all right, Michael, please go ahead. Michael, go ahead, ask a question. You can unmute and ask a
Good
question.
afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. I've seen a situation whereby um, two companies were collaborating on teams. Company A allowed collaboration with company B by adding their domain onto on the settings, the team's policy settings there around there. And at some point, company B had to change their domain to a different domain.
Okay.
Now, the scenario was we now try to add the company B's second domain onto the allowed list, and that was done successfully. Then we told company B, add our own name also onto your domain name. He did that successfully. But whenever we try to add that company B's name onto a team's channel as a member or a guest, it just keeps throwing errors. I don't know if you've seen any situation as such.
Do you have like the screenshot of the error or the error code and anything like that?
Give me a few seconds and I can do that on my mobile phone.
All right.
So, Michael, what you're talking about now, one this thing I was talking of earlier is that B2B collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
where you're doing it on the tenant level. I don't know if you did that settings on that organization.
Yeah, we did.
You did that.
All right, I'll just drop the screenshots on the chat here. Let's switch my screens. This one.
Also, if you're saying they changed domain, first of all, what do you mean? Is it like they added a new domain to their tenant or they changed tenants? Because changing domain is, I don't like to get a clear picture of it. If you have a
All right.
tenant, you can have multiple domains.
They were using abc.com. Then they got bought over by a different company and changed their name to abcd.com. So they just migrated all the tenants from abc.com onto abcd.com.
So that means
That
it's
means they got
different
a new tenant.
tenants,
That
yeah.
means it's a new tenant they have.
Yeah.
So that means if probably you did the collaboration setting, it's probably for the previous tenant, not the new tenant. So you have to
Exactly.
do it
I've done the
afresh.
collaboration also on the new tenants. That's what I'm just saying.
Okay.
So I'm just assuming the new tenant as a new, fresh collaboration, and I did the same thing I did on the previous one. But whenever I try to add, I just keep getting that error I sent on the screenshots.
So why I'm saying that is the issue is not about them changing domain now. So you would just say you're trying to set collaboration with a new tenant. So I'm just trying to, like, if you want to troubleshoot or arrange your case, if you're saying, oh, they just changed domain, it's more like,
It's
you
the same
know,
tenant, but another domain was
I'm
added.
the same tenant and I'm changing domain. So it won't really click, right? So, but if you say they change their tenant, then you know that, okay, we are going to be troubleshooting it from this other
New
level.
tenant.
It's not about the domain that they changed that the issue is coming from. And for collaborations issue, most times, right, when you're actually setting it up, there are a lot of fine tuning you need to also look at, because most times I've actually tried to set up this collaboration between just my own self and I get it throwing errors for me. So I just have to check very well that from my end, all those settings, they are on point. And then it doesn't just have to be on point on my own end. So that's one other thing I always try to get it, because if they are also going to be doing their own settings from there, you might set your own very well, but if their own settings somehow it is blocking you, it is blocked. Like you can, if the fact that you're saying, oh, I'm accepting you and all of that, and them they're telling you no, we are not. So your own acceptance would not override the fact that them they don't really need you. So why I'm saying this is, even if you've configured it from yourself and probably somebody in that other side is telling you, oh, we've done it, except you have access to both tenants, that's when this particular side aspect I'm talking of would not hold. So if somebody from the
I
other
don't have
side is
access to
telling
the outside.
you don't have the other, yeah. So what me I would advise you is, if you've done your own and somebody from that side is telling you, oh, you can do it, how this works, especially, I think one of the situation that was close to this, I don't know if anybody has experienced Free busy. Free busy is one other stuff that if you want to troubleshoot is like very complex. And I had somebody from one IT complaining about free busy, and I had to hold the two of them together and say, okay, you bring your tenant, because if you're telling him, oh, I've configured my side, and he's saying, oh, I've configured my side, you have to look at what they're configuring at their own side also to be sure. Because if you're just looking at your side and you're troubleshooting, you don't really know what is happening at that other end. And if your own end is clear and the other end is not clear, you will just be doing, like, you will just be in circles until it is fixed at that other end. I know there's a delay, but if the delay is more than, like, after fixing it now, it might not just work immediately most times. But if it is going longer than normal and you know yours is correct, it's very simple. You just set up a meeting. When you set up a meeting, you say, this is our collaboration. This is what we have done. Can we see yours? So if by the time you're looking at their own, you're looking at your own, you see that everything is fine, then you can now, okay, let's move to another level of this troubleshooting. But if you're just doing your side and somebody's telling you, oh, I've done my side, like, from experience, it doesn't work, because the person might not know what you're doing and they feel they are doing the right thing, but they are just missing a little stuff. And you probably might even be the one missing something too. So the real question again from the beginning is the switch tenant, not domain, because that would be a bit of confusion. Just say they switch tenants and then you're creating a new collaboration between the new tenants. And you need to review both settings at both ends to be sure that everything is well configured. So yeah, I think that would be like the fastest way for you to fix that issue.
Awesome, awesome. Mike, I hope that answer your question, right?
Yeah, yes, it does.
All right, so just be on the call, so we be on the call and see the collaboration settings. Thank you, Solomon, for that input. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, thank you everyone for joining. So in the absence of no other questions, we'll be ending the today's session. So we will have a session again next week, same time by 4 p.m. West African time. So we look forward to having you join us next week again. Thank you so much for this interactive session. Thank you. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.